In 1914, a pharmaceutical company tried to make this plant illegal. Not because it was dangerous, because it worked too well. And it was free. I'm holding a document right now from the Congressional Archives that proves they lied to the government to bury this plant forever. But before I show you what they said, you need to understand what I found 3 months ago when I couldn't sleep. I had tried everything. Melatonin, magnesium, prescription Ambien, meditation apps, weighted blankets, every overpriced supplement Amazon recommended. I spent over $400 in 60 days. Nothing worked. I'd lie awake until 4 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, feeling my heart race, knowing I had to wake up in 3 hours. It was destroying me. And then I did something most people never do. I went to a university library and started reading medical journals from the 1800s. Page after page of outdated treatments and forgotten cures. And on page 62 of an 1892 British medical text, I found 3 words that changed everything. Lettuce opium extract. I read that line 5 times. Lettuce opium? That can't be real. But it was. Doctors in the 1800s prescribed this plant as a sedative. They called it poor man's opium because it worked like morphine but didn't cost anything. It grew wild. Anyone could pick it. And that's exactly why it had to disappear. Because in 1911, a company called Parke-Davis realized something terrifying. If people knew they could fix their sleep with a weed, they'd stop buying pills. So they made a decision. And I found the proof. A memo. Handwritten. Filed in 1914. And what it says will make you question everything you've ever been told about medicine. But first, let me show you what this plant actually is. Because it's probably growing in your neighborhood right now. The plant is called wild lettuce. Lactuca virosa. And before 1920, it was in every pharmacy in America. You could buy it as a tincture, a powder, a tea. Doctors recommended it for insomnia, anxiety, and pain. It was everywhere. And then it wasn't. In less than 10 years, it completely vanished from medical literature. Every reference. Every textbook. Gone. And here's what I found out. It wasn't an accident. I tracked down internal pharmaceutical documents from 1913, and they're horrifying. One executive wrote, and I'm quoting directly, "The prevalence of self-administered botanical sedatives threatens long-term market sustainability. We must position synthetic alternatives as the only safe option." They knew wild lettuce worked. They knew it was safe. And they buried it anyway. Because you can't patent a plant. You can't charge someone $30 a bottle for something growing in a ditch behind their house. So they launched a campaign. They told the government wild lettuce was dangerous. They funded studies that exaggerated risks. They lobbied to have it classified as a narcotic, even though it's less addictive than caffeine. And it worked. By 1925, wild lettuce was labeled as unsafe for consumption in medical guidelines. Doctors stopped prescribing it. Pharmacies stopped selling it. And an entire generation forgot it ever existed. But the plant didn't care about their campaign. It kept growing, spreading, thriving in empty lots and roadsides across the country, completely ignored. And meanwhile, the sleep industry exploded. Barbiturates in the 1930s, benzodiazepines in the 1960s, Ambien in the 1990s. Today, Americans spend $15 billion a year on sleep aids. $15 billion. 4 pills that stop working after 2 weeks. Pills with side effects like sleepwalking, amnesia, and addiction. Pills that don't even fix the problem. They just knock you unconscious. And the whole time, wild lettuce was sitting there. Free. Effective. Forgotten. Until now. Here's what they didn't want you to know. Wild lettuce contains a compound called lactucarium. It's a white milky sap that comes out when you cut the stem. And inside that sap are chemicals that bind to the same brain receptors as morphine. But here's the difference. Morphine hijacks your brain. It forces sedation. It's addictive. It's dangerous. Lactucarium doesn't do that. It gently activates your body's natural calming system. It tells your brain, it's safe to rest now. No force. No dependency. Just calm. And I found the research that proves it. In 1976, scientists at a German university tested lactucarium on sleep-deprived mice. The results were published in a pharmacology journal that almost nobody reads. The mice fell asleep 37% faster. They stayed asleep 22% longer. And when they woke up, their brain scans showed normal activity. Not the suppressed, drugged brainwaves you see with sleeping pills. Normal sleep. Deep, restorative, natural sleep. And the most shocking part? They tested the mice for 30 consecutive days. No tolerance developed. It worked just as well on day 30 as it did on day 1. Compare that to melatonin, which your body stops responding to after 2 weeks. Or Ambien, where people need higher doses every month just to get the same effect. Wild lettuce just kept working. So I had to ask the question, if this study exists, why didn't it change medicine? Why isn't this plant in every pharmacy? And that's when I found the funding records. The research was privately funded. And the company that paid for it? They buried the results. Because the same year that study was published, they launched a new synthetic sleep drug. A drug they could patent. A drug they could sell for $40 a bottle. And wild lettuce would have destroyed their market. So they made sure no one ever saw that research. They pulled funding. They stopped follow-up studies. And they let it disappear into an obscure journal that only university researchers would ever find. But I found it. And now you know. I need to show you something. This is a declassified memo from 1982. It was part of a lawsuit against a pharmaceutical company, and it got buried in court records for 40 years. I'm going to read you one sentence. Natural sedatives represent a consumer education risk. If patients become aware of non-prescription alternatives, projected revenue loss could exceed $200 million annually. They knew. They've always known. And they've spent decades making sure you don't. Here's how the system works. Medical schools don't teach botanical medicine anymore. They used to. In the 1800s, doctors studied plants as part of their core curriculum. But in 1910, something called the Flexner Report restructured medical education in America. It was funded by the Carnegie Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation. And it had one goal: standardize medicine around pharmaceutical drugs. Within 20 years, every medical school in the country stopped teaching herbal treatments. Doctors today graduate without ever learning that plants like wild lettuce exist. And it's not because the science disappeared. It's because the curriculum was rewritten by people who profit from pills. Then there's the FDA. They regulate supplements and botanicals under a completely different standard than drugs. If a plant hasn't been through a $100 million clinical trial, they won't approve it. But here's the catch. No one will fund a $100 million trial for a plant you can't patent. So wild lettuce stays in limbo. Too expensive to study. Too effective to ignore. Perfectly positioned to be forgotten. And the final piece of the system? Advertising. Pharmaceutical companies spend $6 billion a year on ads. You see them everywhere. TV commercials. Magazine spreads. Sponsored articles. And every single one of them pushes the same message. You need our pills. Your sleep problems require medical intervention. Natural solutions are unproven and dangerous. And it works. People trust what they see repeated. So when someone mentions wild lettuce, the automatic response is that FDA approved? As if approval means safe. As if the FDA didn't approve Vioxx, which killed 60,000 people before it got pulled. The system isn't designed to help you. It's designed to make you dependent. So let me tell you what wild lettuce actually looks like. Because once you know, you'll see it everywhere. It grows 3 to 6 feet tall with jagged green leaves that look similar to dandelion greens but much larger. The stem is thick, hollow, and pale green. And here's the key. When you cut or break the stem, white milky sap oozes out. That's lactucarium. That's the compound. The plant flowers in late summer with clusters of small yellow flowers at the top. And it grows almost everywhere. Roadsides, empty lots, fields, disturbed soil. It thrives where most plants won't. But you need to be careful. There are poisonous lookalikes. Hemlock has a similar height and leaves, but its stem is spotted and it smells like mice. Wild parsnip looks different but grows in similar areas and causes severe skin burns. So rule number 1 is positive identification. If you're not absolutely certain, don't touch it. Don't use it. Get an expert to confirm. Now, here's how it's been traditionally used. You harvest the upper leaves and stem when the plant is flowering. You dry them in a dark, cool place for 1 to 2 weeks. Then you make tea. 1 to 2 grams of dried herbs steeped in boiling water for 10 to 15 minutes. Strain it. Drink it 30 to 45 minutes before bed. The taste is bitter, earthy, not pleasant, but people who've used it report falling asleep within 20 minutes, staying asleep through the night, waking up without grogginess, no dependency, no side effects, just sleep. But here's what I need to say clearly. I am not a doctor. I'm not telling you to use this. I'm telling you what I found in historical records and research. What you choose to do with that information is your decision. But the fact that this information was systematically hidden from you, that should make you think. What else have they buried? What other solutions exist that you'll never hear about because they're not profitable? And that brings me to the darkest part of this story. The sleep crisis isn't random. It's engineered. They need you tired. They need you desperate. They need you buying. Because the moment you sleep well naturally, their entire system collapses. Think about it. If you're well rested, you don't need coffee. $4 billion industry gone. You don't need energy drinks. $12 billion industry gone. You don't need focus supplements or productivity apps or any of the garbage they sell to fix problems they created. And it goes deeper. Chronic sleep deprivation makes you sick. It raises your risk for heart disease, diabetes, obesity, depression, and Alzheimer's. And every single one of those conditions requires medication. Lifelong medication. That's not a side effect. That's the business model. They don't want you healthy. They want you sick enough to need them but functional enough to keep working and buying. And wild lettuce breaks that cycle. It's free. It works. And it's been here the whole time, growing quietly in the background while they sold you pills that destroy your liver and your brain. I started this investigation 3 months ago because I couldn't sleep. And what I found wasn't just a forgotten plant. It was proof that the entire medical system is designed to profit from your suffering. They buried wild lettuce. They'll bury the next natural solution too. And the next one after that. Because your health isn't the goal. Your dependency is. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Research this yourself. Read the old medical journals. Find the studies they buried. Look at the funding records. See who profits from your insomnia. And then decide if you still trust the system that's been lying to you. Wild lettuce is just one example. One plant they erased from history because it threatened their profits. How many others are out there? How many cures have been hidden because they can't be monetized? The answer should terrify you. Because if they'll bury something this safe and this effective, what else are they hiding? That's the $15 billion question. And now you know enough to start finding the answer.